I can't really think of enemies I've got in the Labor Party side. Like, maybe one. I've got one. Yeah, I've got one who doesn't like me, and I don't like him.
And who's the one?
I'm not going to say, but they know they are.
Barnaby Joyce, welcome to High Stakes.
Thank you.
We're here at the Bolt Inn in Uralla, smack bang in the middle of your electorate of New England.
Absolutely in the middle. Thunderbolt, named after the bushranger Thunderbolt, longest serving bushranger, known as a gentleman bushranger, but came to a nasty end like most bushrangers.
So this is a very well-to-do, family-friendly pub.
Yeah, Australians, good people.
I'm told that back in the day you were a bouncer. And was that for a well-to-do pub, or what was the story there?
Not so well-to-do pub, that one. Yeah, I'm not really proud of that. Yeah, but for 2 years I was a bouncer and worked with some good guys and good bar staff. And I lived out in the country, and I wanted to come into town. I was no superstar, but I was handy at footy. I was very fit, and I could look after myself. Probably learned a lot about people at the time, especially if you can talk to drunk people. You can talk to anybody. Most of the stuff you do with bouncing is with your mouth, just talking to people. You don't want to be running around, like you can't do it now, you go to jail, but at the time, you don't want to get physical with people. You just want them to leave because they're creating a nuisance. And so you try to give them the emotional space and the ego space to leave without feeling, like you try to appeal to their common sense, but you've got to remember that they're probably pissed. And then you think, you've got to be a real pug. Not really, because most of the people you're dealing with are drunk and you're stone cold sober. So that's always a great advantage. How you going, Barnaby? That's good.
By my count, this is your 52nd day as a One Nation MP after 2 decades in the National Party. So talk me through your decision to move to One Nation. How was that received locally by your constituents?
Constituents, it's true, overwhelmingly well. I think there's only been a couple of instances, and I don't know whether they voted for me, where I've been sort of an active hostility, but otherwise, even walking around here, good on you, well done, we're so happy that this has happened. I mean, that is the reality. Other people say, gee, you're arsey, mate, you picked it at the right time, didn't you? And for branch members, yeah, look, that's where it's hardest, because they're people that you've worked with, you love. But there were 2 things that drove me in at Canberra. One was policy. We were in this bitter fight against intermittent power, which other people euphemistically call renewables. That solar panels, wind towers, transmission lines. And actually it was really personal for me. It was in my valley. My people were literally where I grew up, where I am now. And we still agreed with net zero, which I went to war. We still agreed with the Paris Agreement. That's a seesaw of these crazy stuff, and the poor people are getting hurt. They're getting driven into poverty. And I see them. I really do know them living in their car. This is not like I hear about it on the television. I actually know these people, and so I really a whole range of things, but that was sort of the final one. And my relationship with Mr. Littleproud had completely broken down. It was completely dysfunctional, and it was getting heated. And I suppose going from the facade of it, I felt that I was becoming a discordant note. I was unhappy. They were unhappy. Even the case of them just not talking to one another, just silence. Told not to leave my electorate because I didn't represent the party. Told that I lose votes, wasn't gaining votes. I proved that one wrong. Never given a question in question time, put in the very back corner, and told that they wanted generational change for me to move on. I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you can be a mentor. Well, I'm mentoring them now. Giving them a real lesson in mentoring. There was no future for me. I had 2 choices, get out or go somewhere else. I went somewhere else. Hey Jessica, pleasure to meet you, Jessica.
One of the big stories at the moment, obviously, is One Nation's rise in the polls.
Yep.
Now, Pauline Hanson pulled in 6.5% at the May election around the country.
Yep.
That crept up towards the end of last year, but really since you've come on board, following, of course, the tragic events at Bondi, we've seen another climb in support.
That's how the people are feeling. Yes, there was lack of inaction from our Prime Minister and his government to actually deal with this. And the hatred has been allowed to fester for a long time. And
really historic lows for major parties as a combination. Why are so many people looking at Labor and the coalition and going, no, thank you?
Gosh, that's such a easy question and such a long answer. Labor and the coalition, because Labor Party's polling's gone down it's down to 32%. And if you had a seat where you had 32%, you'd know that you're going to lose the seat. You know, you hear it in some of their narrative, like we're going to find the sensible centre, and people will say, well, what does that mean? Is the sensible centre correct? Is it where we want to be? Maybe the bookend's where we want to be. Maybe it's a conservative, strong, clarity, unity, strength, and that's the bookend. And that exhibits strength. When you say I'm going to find the sensible centre, people say, so you're a poll chaser. So that, first of all, we don't need you. I'm going to replace you with AI, and you're obviously weak. It's obviously about you terrified about losing your job, not terrified about losing our nation. And so that was it. And then you had obviously a sense of malaise in some key policy areas, intermittent power. You know, we still sort of believe that Chris Bowen can cool the planet. We can't completely throw that out.
How big a part of this is immigration too?
Immigration's massive, because immigration, they've got all A about T. The way Australia should be working is you should be working out how many houses you've got, not how many houses you need to build. You should be worrying about who you bring into this nation, not how you kick them out. And, we bring in more than the population of Canberra without having built the houses, built the schools. There's a pathological hate of water infrastructure, no dams. So I don't know, maybe we've got a new type of being that doesn't drink water. I don't know how that works. No universities, no hospitals, no doctors to look after them. And you know what? You get a cluster. And that's what we had. And there's two outcomes of that. Australians who have worked here, young couples predominantly, go to an auction and they say, I'm just out of the market. I just can't do it. I was talking to one the other day. They said, I said, how much you got? And they went, $750,000. I said, you're not going to own a house for that. Not even in Tamworth. It's $250,000 for the block, and you want to build for $500. You can't do it. And so these people are angry, and they go to an auction, and I'll be frank, they see a whole heap of people who weren't born here just driving them out of their own market. Now, these people who are Australians are of every breed, creed and colour, but they still call themselves Australians. And they say, I can't buy into this market, I'm out. I've even spoken to Aboriginal people in my electorate, and they say, this is crazy. I said, in the past, we'd go for a house, there'd be, 8 white fellas, at times 4 black fellas. Sometimes you win, sometimes we win on the cheaper houses around town. They say now it's 8 white fellas, 4 black fellas, and 71 people from overseas. And it's just, and they're, buying it as family groups, and they're all chipping in, and people are angry about it. And then they also say, well, stop thinking, if you buy cattle and you get a double in, and there are 10 dodgy ones in it. The hock's gone, or their back's gone, or they're severely parasitised, or the couple of them die as soon as they get off the truck. Even though the rest are good, you don't go back and buy any more cattle from me. You just say, I'm not doing it. But we bring in, even though we always say, but there's a lot of people who are decent in the area. Yes, that's right. But Australia doesn't have to be the dormitory for people who basically hate Australia. We have to ask, before people come in here, a really difficult question. Are you going to be a good Australian? I don't care about your religion, your colour or anything, but are you going to be a good Australian? And if I get a sense that you're not, that you have a parochialism to issues that are completely discordant and divergent from where the Australian people are, then I'm sorry, you just can't come in. And we're going to make it a bulk booking if that's the views you have.
This notion of citizenship is actually a good segue to my next question, because one thing that I was told before our conversation was you're a huge ancient Rome history buff, and in fact I went back to your maiden speech in which you quoted Cicero. So what does antiquity teach us about Australian politics today?
Well, first thing, my classics teacher would say, well, Cicero, maybe Cicero, because it's more pronunciation with a K, like Kaiser. Well, it teaches you that we have an acceleration in the decline and fall of how governments work. I mean, Rome, I suppose from the fable Romulus and Remus, right through to the Goths and Visigoths and the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, it followed trying to put too much on your bureaucratic plate, which we're doing again. That basically anybody could become a Roman citizen, which we're doing again, to the bastardisation of the currency by basically, of the but they'd scratch bits off it and say, well, that's the same amount of silver or tin or gold that was in the currency before, and of course it wasn't. Well, we're doing that again with quantitative easing. So it's a repetition, and ultimately the other thing they have is they had a formidable force at their door, whether it's the Vandals in North Africa, the Visigoths, Goths, that would surround them. Well, they're nothing compared to the totalitarian regime of China. Have we got China as a unity, strength, determination, formidable, and we just sit back thinking, no, the world's changed. These things never happen ever again. Well, there's a gentleman called Putin, maybe you want to have a close examination of how he works, and President Xi says he's going to take back Taiwan by 2027, and we live in 2026. So, boy, you're going to have a really interesting year. And even before that happens, Australians haven't comprehended another thing that happened, of course, with the demise of the Roman Empire, was the severing of their grain ties, the grain trade to North Africa, to Egypt. And so everything became the economy by its very nature became fractious, and vital sections of it fell apart. Now, if China pulls on the Taiwan thing, and Australians don't realise this, you're going to have no coal exports, no gas exports, no iron ore exports, probably no beef exports. Your main supply lines will be cut. All the things that you hate, coal mining, cotton, you won't have to worry about them anymore because our markets will be decimated. Your dollar will just absolutely crash. It will blow up. Your inflation rate, because we're overwhelmingly importing nation, your inflation will go through the roof, absolutely through the roof. If the Reserve Bank's still relevant, only way they'll deal with it is putting interest rates up. Nobody in Canberra's talking about it. Like you say, well, do you think Xi Jinping's a bullshit artist? Do you think he's just saying it, pulling your leg? No, I reckon the fella's for real, and we don't have any plan. And so there's a lot of correlations but changes, modifications in the minutiae. But generally, empires rise and fall. Even Soviet, they just rise and fall quicker now. Yeah, absolutely.
One fact about MPs and senators that I think the general public maybe underappreciates is they often have some really good relationships with people across the aisle.
Yep.
What's an example of a politician from the other side that you get along really well with?
Well, obviously in the past, Joel Fitzgibbon.
Yep.
Ed Husick.
Yep.
Good fella. Bill Shorten, always used to get along well with him. I think that in politics, you've got to realise there's a golden rule for me. You play rugby on the paddock, like no matter who you are, you don't respect them. If you're on the 7:30 report or on Sky or debating them, you expect to see their best game. You want them to bring their best game into the chamber. But you don't play rugby in the change room. Once you're in the change room, once you're in the corridor, it's all over. You're not going to change them from being a Labor Party person. They're not going to change you from being One Nation. But you respect them and you go and talk about other things. But don't fall into the trap that think that you're going to prove that all their philosophies that they've held all their life are wrong and yours are all right, and they're going to have an epiphany and convert. They're not, right? And so I get along with most people. I can't really think of enemies I've got in the Labor Party side. Like, maybe one. I got one. Yeah, I got one who doesn't like me, and I don't like him.
And who's the one?
I'm not going to say, but they know they are.
Let's finish off with a word association. So I'm going to rattle off some names, and if you can just give me one word to describe that person. Let's start with David Littleproud.
I think of the National Australia Bank, where I used to first see him. He was the other side of the teller, and I used to drop all my coins off to him at the Charleville branch of the National Australia Bank. So I just think National Australia Bank.
Matt Canavan.
Loyal, smart, just really good guy.
Pauline Hanson.
Tough, super tough.
Donald Trump.
Erratic, but the President of the United States, don't mess with him.
Nigel Farage.
Dream run.
Johnny Depp.
He's decided to bring into our nation 2 dogs without actually getting the proper permits required.
I got him right.
Barnaby Joyce. He looks somehow like inbred with a tomato.
He's a tosser.